What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of UCBP Reacts. I'm joined by Isaac Diaz. Today, we are just reacting to some MMA news that just came out this week. We had some controversy, more controversy, and then we're gonna recap, and then we're gonna talk about the fights that are happening this weekend, Saturday live. Chito Vera versus Corey Sandhagen. Isaac Diaz, thank you for coming on the show. We're talking about the first news is going to be about Jeff Molina. Who's 25 years old, who unfortunately had some unfortunate events happen to him. He was some video was leaked. Someone who he said was mentally ill, who he knew, released a video on Twitter, and then forget about it. It blew up after that. He went on the Ariel Helwani show, the MMA Hour, to talk about it even more in depth. But he had to come out the closet. And now he is, as he says, he is a bisexual man, fighting in the UFC. So, I tend to not really talk about these things and stuff, and we don't really talk about these things and stuff because really personal lives are personal lives and stuff. But wanted to get your take on that. Jeffrey Molina, 25 years old, still, coming off the controversy with James Krause. Actually, he's actually suspended from the UFC. So he hasn't fought since. How do you feel about what he's going through and the events of what happened?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the biggest things, at least for me, these are kind of the consequences that you get while you live a life of, having sex with people and allowing people to record, or you run a risk of people recording you while you're doing sexual things, because that's what the video was about. It was about a sexual act that Molina was doing in the video. Now, just like you said, I'm going to reiterate, we don't care what you do in the bedroom. What I care about is your fighting skills. What I care about is what you bring to the table in the UFC, and what you bring to the table in your division. I could care less that he's bisexual. Kudos to him, whatever he wants to do. He is in free will to do it. I just hope that this doesn't affect him this weekend and becomes the bifocal of and a distraction to his fight. I don't even know what to think about it, but let me tell you something. It didn't destroy Kim Kardashian's career, and it elevated her career. So who knows? This may be an elevation thing for Molina. But to be honest with you, I can care less. I don't know why it's such a big deal when these athletes, come out and say, "Oh, I want to be this gender, or I desire this gender." Guys, we're talking about sports here. I don't care about your sexual preference. Let's keep it the fight game. And that's the most important thing. But it's a shame. It's a shame that happened. Feel bad for the guy. But I hope he gets a W. And some way, somehow, this bad publicity works out on his behalf.
Yeah, I don't think he's fighting this weekend. I don't know if he has a fight lined up just yet.
Okay.
But I think that he's, still going through the things with James Krause. If those of you don't know, I think we talked about it in a video, came out a scandal about him, freaking his head coach, essentially, like coming out with, just a bunch of scandals with betting against his own fighters and all that and stuff. It was pretty wild. I'm going to read you this quote that Jeff Molina said. He said, "Growing up, these feelings I suppressed. These are things that I almost denied. I kept telling myself no. I wrestled in high school. I was a jock in high school. So I was almost mad at myself growing up that these feelings that I had, and I almost would deny them. I would suppress them. I dated a girl for almost 3 years in high school and wanting to think wanting to be normal. But I'm not abnormal. This is something that's normalized. It's something that isn't my personality. It's something so small and it doesn't matter, but it does apparently. Took me a while to come to terms with this. Obviously, the last couple of days have been pretty crazy. These last couple of days have been pretty wild, and it almost helped me to come to terms with I am normal. This is something that is part of me." He goes on to say that he doesn't want to be known for being a gay UFC fighter. He would like to be known as a bisexual UFC fighter. Well, I hope that his career continues to move forward, and hopefully this doesn't affect his, like you said, his fighting career.
His performance.
I know it could be hard, especially with teammates and people, I guess, around his circle who can quite possibly treat him differently. Moving the wheels forward, we have some other controversy in the welterweight division. We just came out of the Leon Edwards versus Usman fight, but now there's still controversy. your man,
Yeah.
Colby Covington,
Yes.
is in headlines again. He was in the headlines last week for weighing in during the London card as the backup fighter. But this time, he is on the headlines for talking trash to John Anik,
the voice of the UFC.
The voice of the UFC. Here's what he had to say, because Bilal Muhammad joined in for the Kenny Florian and John Anik podcast. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast, and he joined in just for as a special guest. And he was just talking about this past weekend, and then obviously the whole thing was brought up that Bilal should be next in line for the title in terms of meritocracy. He should be the next in line, but Colby Covington obviously has different opinions on that, and he said. He said Covington ripped Anik in an interview with MMA Fighting on Tuesday, saying he associated with a racist in Muhammad and appeared to make a threat. But then he said, quote, but then you would want to go behind the stage and cheerlead for a racist. So he associates with racism and Bilal Muhammad. Right. That's what he's saying about John Anik, right? He says, John Anik, dude, I don't want your kids to grow up without a dad. Just realize you live in Boca. I live in Miami. Mother effer. You're not too far from me, so you better shut your expletive mouth. You poke the bear, now you get the bear, and he comes after you. Yeah. This comes out of the heels, obviously, from UFC 286, where Covington was the backup fighter. Let's just say, also, I want to say that and preface that Bilal Muhammad is, he tweeted out saying, why did he get overlooked? And then Bilal Muhammad responded, because he's white. So I think that's Colby was responding to that in the essence of saying that he's racist because of his tweet. Yeah. And then obviously off the heels of the Kenny Florian podcast and John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Isaac, I'm going to go to you. Obviously, what do you think about this?
First of all, John Anik, man, I love John Anik. He's the voice of the UFC. But as a analyst, you have to be biased. I understand Bilal Muhammad is his boy. I understand that he's even part of their podcast at times and runs his own show on their page. But that,
remember the show.
Right. So there are times where I even get upset when I see Ariel Helwani acting all buddies and picking sides with different fighters. I personally believe with analysts and people who are covering the sport, you must be biased. You must be biased. That's why I love DC. Unbiased, because that's why I love DC. When he had to cover John Jones, he said, hey, I'm an analyst, and I'm going to cover him as a professional. So that's what I would have loved Anik to do in that instant. But, of course, he's going to back up his boy. I agree with Colby. That is a completely racist comment. I know he's from the Middle East. So, of course, a person of color, a lot of folks like to say in the political world that a person of color cannot be racist. I'll tell you this, the most racist people I've met in my life as a person of color were people of color, my own race, and so forth. So what I'm trying to say in blatant facts is Colby is next, not just because, first of all, he beat Usman twice. Man, but Bilal Muhammad beat Usman. You want a title shot? Beat Usman. That should be your next. You should be parading for that fight. You should be, going after that fight. Colby's next, whether you like it or not. And it's not because he's white. Let me tell you why. First of all, he's Donald Trump's favorite fighter. Okay, that's number one. And second of all, he's a company man. Did I see you weighing in last weekend? Did I see you cutting weight in 24 hours notice? No. Have I seen you fight Gamebred and dominate him the way that Colby did? Colby is a monster on the mic and a monster in the cage. To be honest with you, if Usman didn't exist, he would be the king of the welterweight division. So it's not because he's white. It's because, first of all, he's a tremendous businessman in promoting fights as well. This is why people get upset at Conor. But Conor can have a layoff of 3 years, come back and fight the champ. Why? Because it's Conor McGregor. So I would like to say this to Bilal Muhammad. The reason why Colby Covington is getting the next title shot, it's not because he's white. It's because he's Chaos Colby Covington. It's all about money, my friend. It's all about money. So maybe you should start chirping at the bit, maybe just a bit more, and learn from Chael 2.0, who is Colby Covington. And Learn to be a better promoter, because in this game, what sells is money. And that's what Colby's about. He's one of the biggest draws after Conor McGregor. So yes, Colby is gonna get it. He's the next one in line, and it's gonna be a great matchup. I'm sure the press conference is gonna be amazing, like always. I do hope Colby wins, because the next fight I want to see is Colby versus the notorious Conor McGregor.
Man,
He's looking to jump up to 170.
I love your breakdown. I would agree with you that Chaos is definitely a draw. Where I would disagree is with literally everything you said. So as a John Anik stan, I'm gonna come to his defense, and I heard the podcast, and he wasn't necessarily being biased towards Muhammad. He just had him on the show. I think it was just like, hey, you speak your truth. You can you can. He even stated in one of the minutes there, he was saying that does it feel better to get it out your chest? You know what I mean? He says that in terms of whoever is next in line in terms of fighting, in terms of like number one pound for pound or whatever you want to call it, right? Bilal Muhammad could be the next one, right? Because he's done it the hard way, like Leon did. Leon has done it the hard way. Right, he went up and he fought everyone. Bilal Muhammad went down actually to fight a fighter, his last fight, and he beat him in impressive fashion in Abu Dhabi. And so I think Bilal came from the aspect of he actually asked to be the backup fighter in the London card. He was actually going to fight Colby Covington. Colby said no, and no one. This is obviously coming from Bilal, but Colby said no, but Bilal asked the UFC, can he be the backup fighter for the London card? They said no to him, and then they stopped responding. So I think that it was also timing wise.
I would have said the same thing.
I think.
Who would have cared that he waited?
I think we all would have looked at it. Yeah, because we've seen many fighters weigh in and they don't get the shot or whatever, But I think we've seen many times where we know what the UFC is about, right? It's not necessarily about who's next in line. And I think the word is meritocracy. So some word there. I'm gonna put it up there. But it's about who's next in line, right? The UFC doesn't care about that. It's not the PFL. It's the UFC, right? It's Ultimate Fighting Championship, and I think they shifted. Yep, they shifted their minds, and now it's all about cash grab, right? So Conor,
what the people want to see.
Right, what the people want to see. I would honestly think that Leon versus Masvidal would have been amazing. So if whoever wins Gilbert versus Leon, I think that would have been amazing. Because Leon has that history with Jorge Masvidal. But again, I don't disagree with it's the company, and they want to do the money fights, right?
Yeah, big money.
So I still think that it's a cheap shot. The only thing I can disagree with is with the whole John Anik thing about talking about his family. I think that the foundation was out of it. Yeah, the foundation was laid out in terms of how Khabib handled things against Conor. Never talked about his family or anything like that. But Conor crossed that line, right? He crossed that line. Chael Sonnen, he crossed the line in certain aspects, but he never crossed it with family. Right. And so, for me, I look at it and I'm like, you're talking to an analyst. He's the fighter. You know what I mean? John Anik is not going to have anything to say about that. He's going to be professional. He's going to go on and he's going to be like, hey, I'm going to call it like it is all the time. And I promise you that he's going to be very unbiased during his talk. When he calls the fight.
Colby's fight. Yeah.
Colby's fight. And so, you got to look at that because, look at the weigh-ins. Who's the guy that's announcing you and talking to you? It's going to be John Anik. And that's going to be very awkward. And so I know that Colby is playing this persona and all that and stuff because when the cameras turn off, he's a completely different person. He's an awesome guy, right? Yeah, and everyone knows that, right? Everyone who knows him closely, he's just a regular guy. But there's certain lines that you don't cross. And we see this in wrestling. He's playing the heel, right? Yeah, Roman Reigns, perfect example. He plays an incredible heel. Behind the scenes and stuff, he's signing autographs for kids. He's doing it in his way, but he's signing autographs and stuff. I think the best example of being a perfect heel would be someone like JBL back in the day, right? Who was terrible on TV. Everyone hated him and stuff, but never behind the scenes, right? Never behind the scenes. I remember the Eddie Guerrero era when he passed away, you see JBL right front and center right there because that was his actual boy.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my camera is getting a little blurry here. That was his actual
Yeah,
boy.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and so I know it's the fight game. I know it's you know, all these things and stuff, but leave family out of it. I don't think it's a good idea to have family involved in that. That's not fair to John Anik, his family, his kids. You know, like his kids are friends are watching that and stuff, and I'm sure, you know, they live in Boca Raton, Florida, which is a very red state, so they obviously know who Colby Covington is.
He's the king of Miami. I mean, let's admit it.
Yeah, and so okay, well, I don't know about all that, but you know, so but I think that he you know, he represents himself in a way where he likes the controversy. But it's dangerous, man, because honestly, there's a lot of people who are backing John Anik, if you see on Twitter right now, are backing John Anik, who would literally tell him like, hey man, I got your back and stuff. And at that point, you got to be careful, you know. If I was Dana White, I would say something, I would do something, because you don't do that to someone an employee who works there. You know what I mean? That's essentially, he's not a fighter. You're not fighting that guy. You're never gonna fight John Anik. You know what I mean?
Well, I would interject in this. You have to be so deep in your feelings and, you know, be a snowflake to be offended by what Colby said. I think John Anik laughs it off. He knows he's a character. He knows he's a heel. He knows I get what you mean. Don't bring in the family. But I'm sure John Anik is going to keep it professional, even when he does call Colby's fight. People got to relax. I mean, we're seeing a character here. We're seeing a character here. This is not who Colby is. Guys, relax. Enjoy the show. He's 1 in a million type of star in the UFC. Come on, appreciate it. He's the heel. You're going to watch him either you hate him or love him, but you're still going to watch him.
On that note, I hope he gets head kicked to the moon and back.
Never. And listen, let's pray and hope that some way, somehow, Gamebred can actually beat Burns at 38 years old and coming in after a fight that was a year ago with being dominated by Colby. Let's just pray that some way, somehow, a flying knee can be executed again. And we can see Leon versus Gamebred, because I'm with you. That storyline is crazy.
Yeah, that would be a great fight. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Again, you could like, subscribe, comment below. Tell us how much you hate this video. Tell how much you love this video. Tell us how much you love John Anik and how much you hate Colby Covington. Or the opposite way around, you know, because we call it how it is, right? Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. But also, don't forget that we have our live situations happening. So either we're doing gameplays or live situations on UFC fights and all that and stuff. Check those out as well. We're also on Instagram at Under the Cardboard Box. Check us out there. We've been trying to post more there as well. Please let us know if you like the content, if you don't, and where you'd like to see us next. For that, I'm going to say
Trump 2024.
Oh, my goodness. Jesus Christ.